The elevator doors sealed shut with a soft hiss, trapping Marcus Reynolds and Elise Chen, complete strangers from opposite worlds, in the gleaming prison of Horizon Tower's most advanced smart elevator. As the lights flickered and the emergency system announced a building-wide lockdown, Marcus clutched his phone, the babysitter's unanswered calls flashing on screen. His son needed his medication in exactly 3 hours. The elegant woman beside him removed her designer glasses, revealing eyes that held unexpected compassion. "I own this building," she said quietly. "And I promise we'll get you to your son." Neither could have imagined how the next 12 hours would transform their lives forever. If you're enjoying this story of two strangers whose lives collide in an unexpected crisis, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional journeys that remind us how a single moment can change everything. Marcus had never set foot in Horizon Tower before today. The gleaming skyscraper represented everything beyond his reach, a monument to success and privilege that seemed to mock his daily struggles. At 34, he'd spent the last 5 years raising 8-year-old Noah alone after his wife's sudden death. Their life was a careful balancing act of minimum-wage jobs, medical appointments, and precious moments with his son who suffered from a rare autoimmune condition. Today's interview for the building maintenance position wasn't just another job application, it represented hope. The salary would cover Noah's treatments and maybe, just maybe, allow them to move from their cramped one-bedroom apartment to somewhere with a yard where Noah could play without worrying about asthma attacks from the mold in their current building. Marcus had prepared meticulously, researching the company, ironing his only dress shirt until the collar was crisp, and arranging for Mrs. Patel next door to watch Noah for a few hours. The interview had gone well, surprisingly well, until the hiring manager mentioned the position had been filled internally that morning. The apologetic smile and promise to keep his resume on file felt like a physical blow. Now, heading down from the 48th floor, Marcus just wanted to get home. Noah needed his medication by 6 p.m., and the babysitter had already called twice. He checked his watch, 2:47 p.m. Plenty of time, as long as nothing went wrong. The elevator doors opened on the 32nd floor, and a woman stepped in. Even without knowing who she was, Marcus could tell she belonged in this world of glass and steel. Her tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than his monthly rent, and she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had never worried about making ends meet. She nodded politely, then returned to studying something on her tablet. Marcus pressed the lobby button again, anxious to be on his way. That's when it happened. A deep rumble shook the building, the lights flickered, and the elevator jerked to an abrupt halt. The sudden stop sent both of them stumbling. Marcus instinctively reached out to steady the woman, then quickly withdrew his hand, mumbling an apology. "What was that?" she asked, her composed demeanor showing the first crack of concern. Before Marcus could respond, the elevator's AI system activated. "Attention! Building security protocols engaged. Horizon Tower is now in emergency lockdown. Please remain calm. All elevator systems temporarily disabled. Estimated resolution time, unknown." Unknown? Marcus couldn't keep the panic from his voice. "That's not acceptable. I need to get home to my son." The woman looked at him with new interest. "Your son? He's 8. He has medication he needs to take at regular intervals. His babysitter doesn't have access to it." Marcus tried the emergency call button, but nothing happened. "The communication systems must be affected too," the woman said, pulling out her phone. "No signal. The building's smart systems must be completely offline." She extended her hand. "I'm Elise Chen." "Marcus Reynolds," he replied automatically, still focused on the emergency panel. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm the CEO of Horizon Innovations. This is my building, and I promise you we will get out of here." Marcus stared at her. The CEO? He'd researched the company extensively but had only seen mentions of E. Chen in articles. He'd assumed, like most people probably did, that E. Chen was a man. Your building has a serious problem, Miss Chen, he said, unable to keep the edge from his voice. Elise, please. And yes, it appears so. She moved to the control panel and pressed her palm against the scanner. Nothing happened. That's concerning. The biometric override should work regardless of other systems. So we're trapped? The reality of the situation was sinking in. For how long? I don't know, she admitted. But our security protocols are designed to protect people, not endanger them. The emergency response team will be working on this. Marcus checked his watch again. 3 hours until Noah needed his medication. The tightness in his chest had nothing to do with the confined space. Tell me about your son, Elise said, settling onto the floor of the elevator and arranging herself with surprising casualness for someone in a designer suit. Marcus remained standing, too agitated to sit. Noah. He's everything to me. Smart, funny, braver than any kid should have to be. He hesitated, then added, he has juvenile dermatomyositis. It's an autoimmune condition that causes inflammation in the blood vessels under the skin and in the muscles, Elise finished. My nephew had it. Marcus looked at her with surprise. Had? He's in remission now. 5 years. A shadow crossed her face. But I remember the fear, the constant worry, the medications that had to be given exactly on schedule. For the first time, Marcus saw beyond the expensive clothes and confident demeanor. There was something in her eyes, a familiar weariness that came from watching someone you love suffer. Noah's doing better with the new treatment protocol, Marcus said, finding himself wanting to reassure her somehow. But he needs his medication every 6 hours, and the next dose is at 6 p.m. Elise checked her watch. That gives us just over 3 hours to get out of here. She stood up and began examining the elevator ceiling. There should be an access panel. In movies, people always escape through the elevator shaft. Despite his anxiety, Marcus couldn't help but smile. I think that's generally not recommended in real life. Probably not, she agreed, returning his smile. But I'm open to suggestions. Marcus looked around the elevator, assessing their options. This is one of your smart elevators, right? The ones with the integrated AI and independent power systems? Elise nodded. The most advanced in the industry. They're designed to function even during power outages. Which means there's a backup battery system, Marcus said, moving to the control panel. If we can access it, maybe we can at least get emergency communications working. You know about electrical systems? Elise asked. I've worked maintenance jobs most of my life. Nothing as sophisticated as this, but the principles are usually similar. He examined the panel more closely. Do you have anything I could use to remove these screws? Elise rummaged through her purse and produced a small multi-tool. Will this help? Marcus took it, surprised. You carry a multi-tool in your designer purse? I grew up helping my father in his repair shop, she said with a shrug. Old habits. As Marcus worked on the panel, Elise told him about her father's small electronics repair business in Chinatown, where she'd spent afternoons and weekends learning to fix everything from toasters to televisions. How her parents had sacrificed to send her to college, the first in their family to attend. How she'd founded Horizon Innovations with the goal of creating technology that would make people's lives better. That's why the smart building systems are so important to me, she explained. They're designed to adapt to human needs, to create environments that support health and well-being. Except when they trap people in elevators, Marcus couldn't help pointing out. Except then, she acknowledged with a rueful smile. This shouldn't be happening. The redundant systems. Sometimes the most sophisticated systems have the most points of failure, Marcus said, finally removing the panel to reveal a complex array of circuitry. Simple can be more reliable. As he worked, Marcus found himself sharing his own story, how he'd met his wife Laura in college, their dreams of starting a family, the devastating diagnosis of her heart condition during her pregnancy with Noah, and how he'd been raising their son alone since her death 5 years ago. Noah was only 3 when she died, Marcus said quietly, his hands steady as he carefully examined the elevator's wiring. Sometimes I worry he won't remember her. What do you tell him about her? Elise asked. Everything. How she loved thunderstorms but was afraid of spiders. How she could never remember song lyrics but would sing anyway. How she used to hold him and promise that no matter what happened, he would always be loved. The elevator remained silent except for the soft sounds of Marcus working on the circuitry. Finally, he sat back. I think I can redirect power to the emergency communication system, but it might only work for a minute or two before the safety protocols shut it down again. Do it, Elise said immediately. Marcus connected 2 wires, and the emergency panel lit up. Elise quickly pressed the call button. This is Elise Chen, CEO. We're trapped in elevator 7. I need immediate assistance. A crackling voice responded, Ms. Chen. We're dealing with a system-wide failure. Some kind of cyber attack. The building's AI is interpreting all external communication attempts as threats. Override it, Elise commanded. We're trying, but the system is designed to be autonomous in emergencies. We've got our best people working on it, but it could be hours. Marcus felt his heart sink. I need to get out sooner than that. My son. The communication system went dead as the safety protocols kicked in. Hours, Marcus repeated, slumping against the wall. Noah needs his medication by 6. Elise was quiet for a moment, then asked, could someone else get it to him? If we could somehow get a message out? The medication is locked in my apartment. The babysitter doesn't have a key, and neither does anyone else. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. I always give it to him myself. There has to be a way, Elise insisted. She began pacing the small space. This is my building. These are my systems. Why would someone attack your building? Marcus asked. Elise hesitated. We're developing new AI security protocols. There are competitors who would benefit from accessing our research. So we're collateral damage in a corporate espionage plot? Marcus couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. I'm sorry, she said, and the genuine regret in her voice surprised him. This should never have happened. They fell silent, each lost in thought. Marcus checked his watch again, 3:30 p.m. Time was slipping away. Tell me more about Noah, Elise said suddenly. What's he like? The question caught Marcus off guard, but he found himself smiling. He's incredible. Too smart for his own good sometimes. He loves space, knows all the planets, all the major stars. Wants to be an astronaut despite everything. His smile faltered. The doctors say his condition shouldn't prevent it, if he stays in remission. What's his favorite book? Elise asked. The Little Prince. We've read it so many times I think we both know it by heart. Marcus looked at her curiously. Why do you ask? I'm trying to see him through your eyes, she said simply. The person we're fighting to get back to. Something in her tone made Marcus really look at her for the first time. Behind the polished exterior was a woman who seemed genuinely concerned, not just about the situation, but about Noah, a child she'd never met. What about you? He asked. Is there someone waiting for you? A shadow crossed her face. Not anymore. My husband and I divorced 3 years ago. No children, we were both too focused on our careers. She gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. The irony is that I built all this, she gestured to indicate the building around them, to create technology that connects people, but my own life is, surprisingly empty of connections. The honesty of her admission created a shift in the atmosphere between them. They were no longer CEO and job applicant, no longer strangers from different worlds. They were just two people trapped together, sharing the truth of their lives. I know something about loneliness, Marcus said quietly. Even with Noah, there are moments when it hits me, this overwhelming sense that I'm doing this all alone, that there's no one to share the burden with. Elise nodded. I understand. Different circumstances, but the same feeling. The elevator suddenly jerked, dropping several inches before stopping again. Both of them were thrown off balance, Elise stumbling into Marcus. He caught her instinctively, his hands steady on her shoulders. Are you okay? He asked. Yes, she said, but didn't immediately move away. For a moment, they stood close enough that Marcus could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive, but not overwhelming. The elevator lights flickered, then dimmed to emergency levels. That can't be good, Marcus said, reluctantly stepping back. The system must be degrading further, Elise agreed, her professional demeanor returning. We need another plan. Marcus checked his watch again, 4:15 p.m. Less than 2 hours now. If we can't get out, he said slowly, maybe we can get someone else in. To Noah. How? The medication is in my apartment, but if someone could break in. Breaking and entering is generally frowned upon, Elise pointed out. So is letting an 8-year-old boy suffer because he can't get his medication, Marcus countered. If we could somehow get a message to the police, explain the situation. Even if we could, that would take time we don't have. Elise was quiet for a moment, then said, I have another idea. Do you trust me? The question hung in the air between them. Did he trust this woman he'd met only hours ago? This CEO whose building had trapped them? I don't have many options, Marcus said honestly. That's not the same as trust, she replied, holding his gaze. Something in her eyes, a determination, a sincerity, made his decision. Yes. I trust you. Elise nodded, then turned to the elevator panel. The building's AI is designed to protect itself from external threats, but it still responds to certain internal commands. If I can access the right protocols. She began working with the panel Marcus had opened, her fingers moving with surprising dexterity among the wires and circuits. What are you doing? He asked. Trying to create a localized reset of the elevator's subsystem without triggering the building's security protocols. She glanced up at him. Like performing surgery on one organ without affecting the rest of the body. And you know how to do that? In theory. I designed much of this system myself. She continued working, her brow furrowed in concentration. The challenge is that the AI learns and adapts. It may have evolved beyond my original programming. That's not reassuring, Marcus said. Welcome to the cutting edge of smart technology, Elise replied with a grim smile. The promise and the peril. As she worked, Marcus found himself studying her, the intense focus in her eyes, the slight furrow between her brows, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when it fell forward. There was something compelling about her competence, her refusal to accept defeat. Tell me if you need help, he offered. Actually, I could use another pair of hands. Can you hold these two wires apart? They can't touch. Marcus knelt beside her, carefully taking the wires she indicated. Their hands brushed, and he was surprised by how warm hers were. So, he said, trying to distract himself from their proximity, you built a multi-billion-dollar company, but you still remember how to rewire an elevator? Some skills you never forget, she said, connecting another set of wires. My father would be proud. He always said understanding how things work at the most basic level was essential, no matter how high you climb. Sounds like a wise man. He was. Her voice softened. He died last year. Heart attack. I'm sorry, Marcus said, recognizing the fresh grief in her voice. The last thing he said to me was to remember that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. She paused in her work. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Whether what we're building here is truly serving people, or just creating more complexity, more points of failure. Like today, Marcus said. Like today, she agreed. But also, bigger questions. Are we connecting people or isolating them? Are we solving problems or creating new ones? The philosophical turn surprised Marcus. Heavy thoughts for an elevator conversation. Near-death experiences tend to bring those out, she said with a wry smile. Is that what this is? A near-death experience? Not if I can help it. She connected one final wire, and the elevator panel suddenly lit up with a soft blue glow. There. I've isolated the elevator's communication system from the main building AI. We should be able to send a direct message without triggering the security protocols. To who? Marcus asked, hope rising in his chest. My personal assistant. She has access codes to override certain building systems. Elise quickly typed a message on the keypad. I'm telling her about Noah, about the medication. She'll handle it. Marcus watched the message send, hardly daring to believe it might work. How will she get into my apartment? She won't need to, Elise said. I'm having her contact the pharmaceutical company directly. As CEO of Horizon, I have connections that can expedite emergency medication delivery. They can't just send prescription medication. They can with the right authorization, which my assistant will obtain. Medical emergency protocols exist for situations like this. She looked at him steadily. What's your address? Marcus hesitated only briefly before giving it to her. She added it to the message and sent it. Now we wait, she said, sitting back against the elevator wall. Marcus checked his watch again, 5:10 p.m. Less than an hour until Noah needed his medication. Thank you, he said quietly. Even if it doesn't work, thank you for trying. It will work, Elise said with a confidence that was somehow reassuring. And when we get out of here, I want to meet Noah. The statement surprised him. You do? He sounds like an extraordinary child. And I'd like to apologize to him personally for my building keeping his father from him. I'm sure he'd love to meet the person who owns a real skyscraper, Marcus said with a small smile. Though he might ask you 1,000 questions about how everything works. I'd be happy to answer every one, she replied. And maybe give him a proper tour, when everything's functioning correctly. The idea of seeing Elise again after this ordeal ended created an unexpected warmth in Marcus's chest. Before he could examine the feeling further, the elevator panel beeped with an incoming message. Elise quickly read it. My assistant has contacted the pharmaceutical company. They're sending an emergency dose to your apartment with authorization for the babysitter to administer it. She looked up at him, relief evident in her eyes. Noah will get his medication on time. The tension that had been building in Marcus's body for hours suddenly released, leaving him lightheaded with relief. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to, she said simply. It's the least I could do, considering my building is the reason you're stuck here. Still, not many CEOs would go to such lengths for a maintenance job applicant. Is that how you see yourself? Just an applicant? Elise asked, her gaze direct. What else would I be? A father who would do anything for his son. A man who kept his head in a crisis. Someone who understands both technology and people. She paused. Those are rare qualities, Marcus. The way she said his name, with a warmth that seemed to bridge the vast differences in their circumstances, made something shift inside him. The position you interviewed for, she continued. It's not the right fit for your skills. I figured as much when they told me it had been filled, Marcus said, trying to hide his disappointment. That's not what I meant, Elise said. I meant you're overqualified for it. Before Marcus could respond, the elevator jerked again, then began to move slowly downward. They've restored partial power, Elise said, standing up. We're going to get out of here. As the elevator descended, Marcus found himself strangely reluctant for their time together to end. These hours of forced proximity had created a connection he hadn't expected, a glimpse into a world and a person he would never have encountered otherwise. The elevator finally stopped at the lobby level, and the doors slid open to reveal a scene of controlled chaos. Emergency personnel, security staff, and worried-looking executives all turned toward them as they stepped out. "Ms. Chen. Thank goodness you're safe," a harried-looking woman in a tailored suit rushed forward. "The system is coming back online now. We've identified the breach and..." Later, Jessica, Elise cut her off. "Has the medication been delivered to Mr. Reynolds' son?" "Yes, ma'am. Confirmed delivery 5 minutes ago. The babysitter has administered it according to instructions." Marcus felt a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly brought him to his knees. "Noah's okay," he whispered. "Of course he is," Elise said, her hand finding his arm in a gesture of support. "I promised we'd take care of him." The next few minutes passed in a blur as they were checked by paramedics and briefed on the situation. A sophisticated cyber attack had targeted Horizon's proprietary AI systems, triggering the building's emergency protocols. The attack had been contained, but not before trapping dozens of people throughout the building. "You should go home to Noah," Elise said when they finally had a moment alone amidst the commotion. "Yes," Marcus agreed, though he found himself reluctant to leave. "Thank you again, for everything." "Before you go," she said, reaching into her purse and extracting a business card. "Call me on Monday. I'd like to discuss a position that might better suit your abilities." Marcus took the card, noting it had her direct number handwritten on the back. "What kind of position?" "We're developing a new division focused on practical applications of our smart technology, making it more accessible, more human-centered. We need someone who understands both the technical aspects and the human needs." She smiled. "Someone who knows that sometimes simple is better than complex." "I don't have the qualifications for." "You have exactly the qualifications I'm looking for," she interrupted. "Experience in real-world applications, problem-solving abilities, and most importantly, perspective on what really matters." She glanced at her watch. "Now go. Noah is waiting." Marcus nodded, tucking the card carefully into his pocket. "I'll call on Monday." As he turned to leave, Elise called after him, "And Marcus? Bring Noah for that tour I promised." "I meant what I said about wanting to meet him." The sincerity in her voice left no doubt that she meant it. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his new office on the 45th floor of Horizon Tower, looking out over the city. On his desk sat a framed photo of Noah in a NASA t-shirt, grinning widely as he stood between Marcus and Elise at the Kennedy Space Center, a surprise trip she had arranged after learning of his passion for space. The door opened, and Elise walked in, dressed in her usual impeccable style but with a warmth in her eyes that had become familiar over the months they'd worked together. "Ready for the presentation?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Marcus replied, gathering his notes. "It's not every day you present to the board of directors. They're going to love the new accessibility features. Your ideas have transformed the entire project." "Our ideas," he corrected. "This has been a team effort." Elise smiled, the same smile that had first appeared in that elevator when they'd received confirmation that Noah had gotten his medication. "Speaking of team efforts, Noah's school called. He won the science fair." "They called you?" Marcus asked, surprised. "I'm on his emergency contact list, remember?" she reminded him. "I told them we'd both be there to pick him up after school to celebrate." The casual "we" no longer surprised Marcus. Over the past months, Elise had become a constant presence in their lives, helping Noah with science projects, joining them for movie nights, bringing thoughtful gifts that showed how closely she listened to both of them. "He'll be thrilled," Marcus said. "He's been talking about nothing else for weeks." I was thinking we could take him to that new interactive space exhibit at the museum, Elise suggested. Unless you had other plans? That sounds perfect, Marcus said, gathering his presentation materials. As they walked toward the boardroom, he added, Noah asked me something interesting this morning. What's that? He wanted to know if you were going to be his new mom. Elise stopped walking, her expression a mixture of surprise and something softer, more vulnerable. What did you tell him? Marcus took her hand, an action that had become natural over the past few months as their professional relationship had gradually evolved into something deeper, more personal. I told him that some of the best things in life happen when you least expect them. Like getting stuck in an elevator with someone who changes everything. Elise's smile was radiant as she squeezed his hand. Smart answer. I learned from the best, he replied, and together they walked into the boardroom, ready to face whatever came next, together. As they presented their vision for technology that truly served human needs, Marcus couldn't help but reflect on how a single day, a single choice to trust someone from a world so different from his own, had changed everything. Not just for him, but for Noah, for Elise, and potentially for countless others who would benefit from their shared vision. Sometimes, he realized, the most important connections happen when we're forced to stop, when our carefully constructed routines are interrupted, when we have no choice but to truly see the person standing right in front of us. And sometimes, being trapped is the first step toward being truly free. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys that remind us how unexpected connections can transform our lives. Share in the comments if you've ever had a chance encounter that changed everything for you. Sometimes the most meaningful relationships begin in the most unlikely circumstances.